Welcome to Psychic Insights, where pop culture meets higher consciousness and the tea is always a little bit mystical. I'm Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend, and around here we don't just watch the drama unfold, we read the energy behind it, whether it's celebrity scandals, reality TV, chaos, or true crime with a twist. I'm tuning in to bring you the intuitive scoop, the headlines. So buckle up because your aura's about to get entertained. Welcome back to my channel, it's Robin Richardson, your psychic girlfriend. Hopefully your favorite psychic on the internets, interwebs. Oh my gosh. I really wanted to continue the conversation from the last episode because a lot of you felt it. And one particular comment kind of stuck with me. And someone wrote, and I'll paraphrase, respect ice, full stop. All right, and I want to talk about that, not to argue or to shame, but because that sentence fully and actually illustrates the exact the psychic pattern that I'm reading into. And today we're going to go a little deeper, and this episode is about why people support institutions and actions that cause harm even when information is available and even when suffering is visible. And I pulled cards again so we can stay clear and aligned and regulated, not reactive, because I'm human, you know what I mean? All right, and this is not about cruelty. It's about emotional reassurance. So, before I go any further, I want to be very clear. This is not an attack on individuals. It's not a political rant. It's really not labeling anything good or bad. It's talking about patterns of consciousness. And I'm using U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement as a case study because it's present in the collective conversation right now. But the energetic dynamics here apply to many systems of power. And if you feel defensive, great, listen to this. But I gently invite you to shift into curiosity instead. Because defensiveness is a part of the pattern too. All right? And I'm here to support people in raising their consciousness and awareness. All right. So the first cards out of the gate were stars and heart. Okay? And this immediately tells me that support is not rooted in any kind of logic. It's rooted in hope and identity. And many supporters are emotionally bonded to the idea of safety and order and protection. Things will be okay if someone is in charge. And when the heart attaches to a symbol, questioning that symbol feels personal. So when you challenge the system, it doesn't land as information, it lands as a threat. And this is why facts alone don't work. You're not debating policy, you're touching someone's emotional scaffolding. All right, next came the rider and the letter. So let's look at it. Rider, letter, okay? And this is fast information, headlines, sound bites, talking points. People are responding to messages, not lived experience. Speed replaces depth. And when information moves quickly enough, there's no time to feel, only time to react. And that reaction almost always feels like certainty. All right, so there's another layer that we need to talk about here because language matters, words matter. Not politically, but psychically. And I've noticed people who strongly support these actions often use the term illegals to describe human beings. So let's unpack that gently. Stay with me, okay? First, let's be factual and grounding. A human cannot be illegal. Actions can be unlawful. Paperwork can be out of status. But people themselves are not illegal. So when someone chooses that word, it's not about accuracy. It's about emotional distance. And cyclically, when a person becomes an adjective, their humanity collapses into a category. Face, story, family, and context disappear. And what's left is a label. And that label does important work for the nervous system. It simplifies, it soothes, and it removes complexity. And so I had to ask why people use that term. Most people don't choose that word because they're trying to be cruel. They choose it because it does three things at once. First, it removes moral responsibility. If someone is illegal, then whatever happens next feels justified by definition. Second, it creates emotional safety. It's easier to support harsh outcomes when the subject is abstract instead of human. And third, it reinforces binary thinking. Legal versus illegal. Us versus them. Right versus wrong. Binary language calms anxiety. Nuance requires feeling. Labels do not. So this is the part people miss. Using the word illegals allows someone to say, I'm not against people. I'm against illegality. But that distinction collapses the moment you realize the person absorbs the consequences. Language becomes a buffer. It lets someone feel moral, orderly, and justified without sitting with human impact. And this isn't accidental. It's the same energetic pattern we saw with fast messaging, distance from consequences, moral reassurance. Language becomes the final layer of insulation. All right, so humanizing language activates empathy. Empathy activates discomfort. And for people who rely on certainty and order and authority to feel safe, empathy feels destabilizing. So systems and their supporters favor language that keeps the heart calm and closed at the same time. And that's not hatred, that's avoidance. Now we come to Clover. Okay, and this card is of low stakes benefit. Support becomes much easier when the consequences feel distant. Cost feels minimal. The harm doesn't touch your daily life. Clover says, this isn't that serious. It doesn't impact me. And distance definitely dulls empathy. All right, and then we have the fish. Fish. Go fish. All right, this is economic and logistical thinking. Jobs, resources, efficiency. Keeping things running. Human impact gets reduced to numbers. Morality becomes transactional. And it's not ideal, but it's necessary. That framing causes discomfort. All right? And then we have the next thing. We have the path. Well, crossroads, and then we have mountain. All right? And path here is false binary thinking. This is this or chaos. It has to be this or chaos. Enforcement or collapse, control or danger. Mountain shows emotional blockages or distance. And together they say, there is only one way forward, and I can't afford to look at it too closely. Complexity becomes threatening. All right, and finally, the sun. And this is certainty, and supporters genuinely believe this is ultimately good. This will work out. This is for the greater good. Sun isn't cruelty, it's rightness, and its certainty feels safe. So let's talk about that comment again. Respect ice, full stop. It's a shutdown. Energetically, it says, don't question, don't feel beyond what you've been told, and don't complicate the story. And I want to be very clear. You can respect human beings and still interrogate systems of power. You can honor complexity without outsourcing conscious. And you can respect that cannot tolerate examination is not respect. It's emotional insulation. And when someone says full stop, what I sense is a fear of destabilization. Because if the conversation continues, something inside might have to move. And for many people, certainty feels safer than truth. And nothing in this reading shows hatred as a primary driver. What it shows is hope management, emotional reassurance, and distance from consequence, moral outsourcing. And people aren't supporting harm because they love harm. They're supporting a story that keeps their nervous systems regulated. All right. So systems that cause harm don't survive because of monsters. They survive because of ordinary people who never examine the authority they've been handed. And this moment someone asks, is legality the same as morality? And can we ask the question, what am I participating in? And let's also ask, who pays the price for my certainty? That's when the mountain starts to crack and the path widens. And that's when the sun becomes illumination instead of blindness. And this work isn't about outrage, it's about awareness. Because when we understand how support happens, we stop asking, how can anyone support this? And we start asking, what helps people stay asleep? Curiosity over certainty, and discernment over dogma, humanity over full stop. Thank you for being here. And I appreciate your support. I do appreciate your comments. And it takes a lot of courage to comment. And even if it's something that feels like argumentative or confrontational, I read them all. And I'm here to raise consciousness and to understand. And spiritual inquiry is not about making things right or wrong, but understanding what is happening and looking at the patterns that support these systems. And until next time, be well, be discerning, and I'll see you in the next one.